Talk about the BBC. We've covered Huw Edwards, who's on £440,000 a year despite having not done a minute's work for the past year, pending an investigation into alleged inappropriate relationships with younger members of staff. We don't even know if he denies that. But my point is, he gets £440,000 as the highest paid newsreader. Have a look down that list. This list will be published in July. It's all the highest paid earners, and it'll be full of sort of newsreaders that you've barely heard of on £220,000 a year, £180,000 a year. They are taking our money at the BBC and dividing it among themselves. In the old days, the robber barons used to steal taxes off the peasants for their land. Now, the robber barons, they work for organisations like the BBC who make us pay them so they can divide this money. No one else gets £440,000 to read the news in the entire British television industry. Why does the BBC pay people so much?
Well, it's mad, isn't it? I remember my time at the BBC. Oh, I remember that well. Gave me PTSD, that did. Yeah. And I was basically, ironically, on a 0 hours contract for like £2 an hour. It was harrowing. You know, it was a dreadful job, which is why I left, basically, because it was just utterly appalling. But what you did notice at the BBC, because I'd come from commercial television, ITV, was ITV. They just made a lot more good content with a lot less stuff. In the newsroom, it's like, right, take a cameraman, off you go, edit your own material, come back, you know, be an adult, be a proper journalist, get it done. At the BBC, it's like, right, we need to get a clip to go with this story. Let's get the presenter to go stand on a motorway bridge. Let's send 3 junior producers out to get a clip with the First Minister. Let's have another junior producer sitting in an editing suite with a craft editor cutting 15 seconds. One person can do that all by themselves. The waste at the BBC, the profligate waste for people who have worked inside it and seen it with their own eyes is something to behold. But also, big problem that the BBC seems to have, probably true, I think, in other sections of our industry, is when you get these sort of big-name stars, the talent, they're beatified. You know, they can do no wrong. Oh, better not investigate them. They walk on water. Aren't they magical? See where they go. Look at everything they touch turning to gold.
The talent. They speak into microphones. Can you imagine having that amount of talent? You're right. They
can read.
They're treated like gods. And when I made that point earlier about how highly paid, overpaid these newsreaders in particular are, who just read auto cues like we do, and we don't get what Huw Edwards earns, trust me.
Gary Lineker gets 1.3 million for reading football scores.
Now,
why?
But what we should point out is what you quite rightly alluded to is, while Huw Edwards is getting £440,000 a year, this was way back when he used to actually turn up for work, his producer probably on 10 times less than that, 45 grand if you're lucky. So the disparity between what the BBC sycophantically, ridiculously and ludicrously calls the talent and people who actually do the work, the producers, the assistant producers, the people who put the programmes together, the disparity is grotesque.
No, it really, really is. I mean, you see this in a lot of different industries, frankly, that those at the top are increasingly being paid multiples of what those at the bottom are being paid. But there is something about our industry which does do it to a sort of utterly, you know, horrifying, jaw-dropping extent.
But the BBC always says, oh, well, we have to pay people like Huw Edwards all this money because of the commercial rivals will poach them otherwise. The commercial rivals won't pay anything like what you pay everyone. Where do you think Gary Lineker's going to go for 1.3 million quid a year? I know, nowhere.
But talking about people at the top being paid in sort of ludicrous multiples of those at the bottom, it's sort of another segue. We like our segues on Crosstalk. But, you know, it's worth pointing out the massive fat cap bonuses and salaries the chief executives of utility companies get. Because there you have, you know, Joe Bigwig, whatever he's called, is running Thames Water into the ground, leaks everywhere, sewage being pumped into rivers. All the fish in one particular Oxford village are now dead and floating on the water with, like, your wrong genitalia and, like, glazed over cocaine eyes because of all the rubbish that's been pumped into that particular river. And he's probably walking home with millions of pounds, isn't he, for not doing his job. It's the same thing again.
Indeed.